Hello, and welcome to Harrison Talks Pod. My name is Harrison, and welcome to my new podcast. Trying to grow this podcast and channel organically from zero. So if you like what we do here today, please like and subscribe on YouTube or any podcast platform. I intend for this podcast to be about NBA basketball, video gaming, traveling, and whatever else I'm doing that week. I won't have any guests on this week, perhaps the first couple weeks getting everything started, and I will be bringing on some friends and guests to talk about all of those things that I mentioned. So for today, I am recording on a Tuesday morning in bright, sunny Thailand, and we are less than 24 hours away from NBA tip off. So it might be a little bit of a belated NBA preview with many unanswered questions, and let's see if I can get this episode out before the first game starts. So let's go. Let's see if I can get you all 15 teams and not talk too much. So, preview and unanswered questions. Let's spin the randomizer to see who we are getting first. And we had to start with this one, the Detroit Pistons. Oh, the Detroit Pistons. Historic season, 14 and 68 last season. Set the NBA record for longest losing streak. Yet was only one game behind the 14th place Washington Wizards. Going into a season that has an NBA draft prospect that is the biggest since Victor Wembanyama. They were 27th in offense, 26th in defense, 28th in net rating, and their over-under for the season was 28.5. Wow. Wow, that was more than double. They will have the second lowest payroll heading into the season, next to the Utah Jazz at $129 million. Tobias Harris signed in the offseason, 2 years, $52 million. Wow. And Tim Hardaway will be on the last year of a 4-year deal. Isaiah Stewart starts his 4-year, $60 million deal. Asar Thompson in his sophomore year, Ron Holland in his rookie, Malik Beasley, 1-year, $6 million deal. Jalen Duren on first of his 2 team options. They were 3-2 in the preseason under new coach JD Bickerstaff, and players like Jaden Ivey and others have mentioned that there has been a growing confidence in his system. So, what's the big question? If you are a superstitious Pistons fan, do you want the Pistons to try and get Cooper Flagg in the draft lottery? Or do you try to improve your defense, try to become a top 15 in defense, and try to make the play-in game when others are shooting for Cooper Flagg in the draft lottery? Keep in mind that the Pistons have selected 5th the last 3 years since getting Cade Cunningham, so if you're superstitious, it might not work out so well. Can Cade Cunningham become an all-star this season? He signed 4 years, $238 million, which will start in 2025. Last season averaged 22.4 points per game and 7.5 assists. If he can develop more of a three-point shot, can he be one of the all-star guards in the East? There's definitely room to grow. Asar Thompson had a productive rookie season, but shot under 20% from 3. Jaden Ivey led the preseason in scoring and mentioned that under JB Bickerstaff, there's been growing confidence and confidence that he will grow, maybe have a career year as a player. Let's keep going. Okay, eliminate. That was interesting to start with. What do we have next? And one of my favorite League Pass teams last year, the Indiana Pacers. 47-35 last season, which is the best since their 18-19 season. They finished sixth in the East and lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. They were also up in the finals for the first midseason tournament against the Lakers, which feels like it was years ago at this point. They were 27th in defense and first in offense. And besides, I think the Bucks, who were 22nd, I believe, in defense when they won their championship, that is the only bottom half defensive team that has won a championship. So there's their weakness. Here's some interesting facts. They were first in opponent 3-point field goals made, but they were 30th, dead last, in 2-point field goals made, which equals out to their 27th best defense in the league. They are still under the salary cap, even with Siakam signing 4 years, $189 million. Tyrese Halliburton is on the second year of his 5-year, $206 million deal. Miles Turner will be on a contract season. Toppin signed 4 years, $58 million, which I think is a superb deal for the Pacers. Mathurin is on the first of his 2 team options. Jarris Walker, second year of his 4-year, $28 million deal. And James Wiseman signed for a small 2-year, $4.8 million deal in the offseason. And they were 2-2 in preseason. Big question. Does the familiarity and extension of Pascal Siakam influence the team's defense? Siakam had one of the most efficient seasons last season. Could be the most important player for the Pacers next season. Has had 2 All-Star appearances, and the last one was in 2022. Halliburton played 69 games last year, was the assist leader at 10.9 assists per game and 20.1 points per game. Could we see a breakout season with Halliburton's shooting? And last year was good enough for third-team All-NBA, even with missing 13 games. Miles Turner has seen a great offensive improvement the last 2 seasons and has been one of the most consistent centers in the league for the past couple of years and played 77 games last season. Does he provide more of a piece for the Pacers, or do we eventually see him move on to a different team? Again, I love I love Obi Toppin's 4-year, $58 million deal. He started 28 of his 82 games played last season, played every game. Shot 57% and 40% from 3. Aaron Nesmith, 47 of 72 games started last year and had his best offensive season so far at 50% shooting and 42% from 3. So many stats are pointing towards the Pacers having one of the best, or maybe again the best offense in the league next season. So, do all of their pieces, with not many new pieces coming in, does an improvement or an influence on Siakam, a motivation of the big contract, influence their defense? Let's move on. All right, we hit eliminate. My mouse isn't working now. Let's spin it. Next up, we have the Charlotte Hornets. We're jumping around to start our day. This is random. 21 and 61 last season. 13th in the East. They were 29th in defense, 28th in offense. Worst in net rating, and finished way below their over-under at 31.5. Wow, 31.5. Charles Lee is their new head coach for this season. The big question for the Hornets, with no playoff appearances since 2016 and no playoff series win since 2002, when they were a completely different franchise now in New Orleans. Will fans be patient for a year to possibly get a huge draft pick? Or should they be shooting for more? Also, the Hornets had the worst attendance of the league last season. They had the 6th lowest payroll. Will the lineup look different by the end of the season. They owe $11 million to players they no longer have, including Davis Bertans. Sixth lowest payroll, 11 million of that, players they don't even have. LaMelo played only 22 games last season and will start his 5-year, $203 million deal this season. 184 games played for LaMelo in his 4 seasons and has played 75 games since the 21-22 season. How about their new acquisitions? Will they hold on to Grant Williams, which they acquired last season? Josh Green, which they acquired in the Klay Thompson deal, and Trey Mann, who has a player option season. In my opinion, it's unfortunate that Miles Bridges gets a 3-year, $75 million deal, but let's move on quickly from that. Opening day, I believe, will be LaMelo Ball, Josh Green, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Mark Williams for their starting lineup. I would be worried about their size and their pace, but realistically, this team could be a chance for the play-in, and that might be it. Again, what is the goal of the Hornets with not very much success so far? Last big question I'll say is, what happens with LaMelo Ball if Brandon Miller is made the focus? Clearly, Brandon Miller had a fantastic rookie season, finishing second or third in Rookie of the Year voting, and had the second highest point per game among rookies next to Wembanyama. And if the Hornets shift and move on and focus around Miller, does LaMelo Ball stay on the team? So, what does this team look like middle end of the season? Who do we go to next? Next, we go to the Miami Heat, one of my favorite teams to talk about. 46-36 last season, 8th in the East, 26th in offense, 3rd in defense. Had a first-round exit after losing the finals in 22 and 23, and have only missed the playoffs 3 times in the last 9 years. They had an impressive 4-1 preseason, including defeating the Grizzlies in their last game while missing 9 players on the road. How will Jimmy Butler do this season? I think should be the big question. It was noted a lot that he played straight through media day, no antics, and Pat Riley said to keep your mouth shut about beating the Knicks and Celtics if the Heat were healthy. So, no more narrative, not very much narrative talk today, I promise. The most he's played for his 5 seasons in Miami is 64 games. He had an efficient shooting season last season, but only averaged 20.8 points per game, which is his least since the 1920 season. Can his points per game improve to help the overall 26th offense from last season? Because their defensive identity is very good. Even with some holes, their defensive identity is quite good. Riley also mentioned recently that there won't necessarily be any big changes if they don't win a championship this year, but it should be a crucial season for them after being in the finals twice in these last 5 seasons with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler did not work out a deal in the offseason, so will be on a $52 million player option. That is pretty nice. Bam signed an extension in the offseason and could be a great productive season for him coming off of the Olympics. Caleb Martin left to the 76ers. Kevin Love and Thomas Bryant are coming back on smaller deals. Josh Richardson, player option. Khalil Ware, Alec Burks, new additions. Not very many new additions, so will it be enough for them to improve? Bam Adebayo was first team all defense for the first time last season and was 6th amongst centers in points per game at 19.3. Second team all defense the last 5 seasons for Bam Adebayo. Tyler Hero has had consistent shooting years in points and efficiency, but defense has always been a concern for him. We did see Hero transition a bit more and have some nice moments in the preseason where he was driving to the paint and playing more off ball and had many more points inside. So perhaps it's a new look for Tyler Hero as well, who also looks a bit bigger and stronger. So if everybody improves individually, can Miami be a championship team, not just an NBA Finals team? Where do we go next? Okay, I'm having fun. Okay. Boston Celtics. Let's get that out of the way. It's like we're going top and bottom. Let's just start with the big question. Should it be a championship or bust for the Celtics, and what is their biggest challenge? I think for the Celtics, since the Kevin Durant Warriors, this has been the most assuring returning championship team. I'll put it that way. Very competitive league throughout East and West, but every sign to me points to the Celtics being the favorites heading into this season. 64 and 18 last 64 and 18th last season. Good enough for the East. Won their 18th title. They will look very similar to last season and will have the highest payroll in 2025 at $226 million, nearly $45 million above the cap, I believe, for the following year. Jaylen Brown's $304 million extension starts this season. Tatum signed an extension in the offseason with a $71 million player option in 2029. I wonder if he'll take it. Jrue Holiday signed a 4-year, $135 million deal in April, which I think is worth every penny, with a player option in 2028. He was defensive second team this year, and he was 6th in Defensive Player of the Year. While his point per game went down to 12.5, he had a career high in effective field goal percentage at 58%. Derek White signed a similar 4-year, $134 million deal in the offseason, also with a player option in 2028. He was 8th in Defensive Player of the Year and second team defense. Had career highs in points and rebounds and shot just below 40% from 3. Was in many of Boston's best 3 and 4 men offensive lineups. Tatum was 6th in MVP last season. NBA first team for the 3rd season in a row. Has been one of the most consistent players, playing 74 games last season and at least 66 games in his 7-year career. Brown was an all-star last season and had a lot of doubters that I think are more assured now heading into this new season. He was consistent offensively, but hasn't shot 40% from 3 since the 2021 season. Last year was 35% on 5.9 attempts. Porzingis had foot surgery in June, and there is no timeline for return. He played 57 games last season and 65 the year before in Washington, which was the highest since his rookie season. He was included in 3 of the top 4 best 3-man lineups for Boston. So another big question might be, can the Celtics hold on with Porzingis being out? They were 4-1 in the preseason. Let's move on. Next, we have the New York Knicks. Also a favorite to talk about. 50 and 32 in last season. Good enough for second in the East. They were 7th in offense and 10th in defense. And heading into this season, I think Knicks fans should be feeling more positive than ever. They lost the conference semifinals against the Pacers, and lost round 2 in 2023. Is that right? Okay. 3 playoff appearances in 4 years after a playoff drought since 2013. Karl Anthony Towns was, I would say, by far the biggest acquisition across the league. A 4-year contract kicks in. It has a $61 million option in 27-28, while Brunson has a player option in 28-29 at $43 million. Wow. 43 million sounds like a lot. Not really that much. Knicks have to be a championship or bust this season. I'm not even going to frame it as a question. Let's just say Karl Anthony Towns is acquired. They have to be a championship or bust team. 192 million guaranteed in 25-26 among only 8 players. So they will be well into luxury tax heading into next season. Other than Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby signed 4 years, $212 million deal day before the Karl Anthony Towns trade. It's a bit crazy to see how much more Anunoby is making compared to Brunson. Just saying. Josh Hart will look comfortable as a starter. He started all 51 games with Portland last season, but only one with the Knicks. And how much impact on offense will Josh Hart have? While he's not a volume three-point shooter, his most productive offensive season was 21-22, which was at 14.9 points per game between two teams. Another question, could Miles McBride be a Sixth Man of the Year candidate? McBride shot 41% from 3 on 3.9 attempts last season, had a solid preseason, and will have more room to make up on offense with DiVincenzo being traded and Josh Hart possibly being in the starting lineup. Mitchell Robinson will be out for a while with an ankle injury. Another question will be, will Knicks need a starting 5 to back up Karl Anthony Towns? Currently they have Jericho Sims, Ariel Hukporti, I believe, and Precious Achiuwa did see time at the 5 in the preseason as well. So what will those rotations look like? I believe they have one of the best starting lineups in the league, and the pieces on their bench and their depth are debatable. They were 19th in three-point percentage on 14th in attempts last season. Can this improve with Karl Anthony Towns? Improve their offense overall? I'm done. Let's move on. Next we have Washington Wizards. I told you that we are just jumping up and down today. Washington Wizards, 15 and 67 last season. They were 14th in the East, 35th in offense, 28th in defense, 27th in net rating. Wes Unseld was fired after being 7 and 36, while Brian Keefe did not do any better, did a little bit better at 8 and 31. Kuzma was the only 20-plus point per game scorer at 22.2, while Jordan Poole was next at 17.6, which was his lowest since the 2021 season, with 32% from 3 last season. Kuzma had career highs in points per games as well as attempts, and while Kuzma is not a solid passer, he had career highs in assists last season at 4.2 assists, had a decent field goal percentage, but has never been too solid from 3, shot 33% last season. Jordan Poole is on the second year of his 4-year, $120 million deal, which everyone remembers at this point. Kuzma on the second year of his 4-year, $90 million extension. Rashawn Holmes, 2 years, $26 million extension in the offseason, and Alex Sarr signed a rookie extension. Malcolm Brogdon was traded from Portland in the offseason and is on a contract year. It will be his 5th team in 5 years, and had a decent season on a very bad Portland team last year until his injury. Played 39 games last year. So on a contract year, will Brogdon sign an extension, or will he be picked up by another team before the trade deadline? What will happen? A big question, similar to what I asked with Charlotte, will they try for the lottery? And will they be the worst team in the East? No playoff series wins for this team since 2016-2017. They were 2-3 in offseason, with Alex Sarr having some decent performances while having a rough premiere in the Summer League. How many games will Alex Sarr start at center? They have 123 million in 2025, 4 team options. Do they make any trades before the trade deadline? The 76ers. Okay. I said we're not talking about narratives today, but let's go here. 76ers, 47-35 last season, 7th in the East, 15th in offense, 9th in defense. Biggest question, health. Has to be health. Paul George hyperextended his knee in the preseason. Might only be a few games, to be determined. Whenever it's Paul George and his knee, it's always unfortunate. Played 74 games last season, which is his most since 2018-2019, and missed 113 regular season games the 4 years prior. Will begin 4 years, $212 million this season, which means he will be 38 years old when that contract is completed. Embiid, 39 games last season, was inactive between February 1st and March 31st. Has played 433 games over 10 seasons, which of course is just over 50%, and has never played more than 64 games in a season. Even mentioned last week that he might not ever play back-to-backs, which is hard to hear. Unfortunate. He was on pace to have an historical offensive season, averaging 34.7 games in those 39 games, had 2 50-point games, 1 48-point game, and the memorable 70-point game in January. They'll have the 7th highest payroll in 2025 at 185 million, with 3 player options. They are locked into Maxey, Embiid, and George until at least 2027, when George has that player option. Maxey signed 5 years, $205 million deal in the offseason, had his first All-Star year, and most improved player, averaging 25.9 points per game. So, how will health hold back this team, and can they recover quickly? Toronto Raptors. This is an interesting one. Have I said that enough today? Toronto Raptors. 25-57 last season. Right under their 26.5 went over under. They were 12th place in the East. This is their 3rd year in a row missing the playoffs, and they haven't won a playoff series since 2020. They were 24th in offense, and they were 25th in defense. This is their 2nd season with coach Darko Rajakovic. Big question. Will RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and OG Anunoby with them, will the Raptors try to compete, or will they try to get into the lottery? This is the 3rd team that I'm saying this with. Their best 4-man lineup included these 3 players and Jakob Poeltl. Quickley signed 5 years, $175 million in the offseason. Barrett is on a 2nd year of 4 years, $120 million. Poeltl is on a 2nd year of 4 years, $78 million. Olynyk signed 2 years, $25 million in March of this year. Barnes signed an extension in July for 5 years, $234 million, beginning in 2025. Scotty Barnes, excuse me. We'll have 146 million guaranteed in 2025. So going for the draft might make sense as far as money goes, but it also makes sense to compete now with many new players acquired the end of last year going into the season. Scotty Barnes had his first All-Star appearance last season, 19.9 points per game, 6.1 assists, 8.2 rebounds, which were all career highs. He had a few inconsistent scoring games, but didn't miss a game in the 60 games leading up to having a hand fracture. So was consistent playing wise. Without a solid fifth starter and a lack of depth, is it worth competing in the East against some of these top teams? If Grady Dick is the fifth starter, the bench will include Bruce Brown, Olenek, Chris Boucher, oh my God, Davion Mitchell, O'Shea Abaji, Jacoby Walter, Garrett Temple. It's a fair mix of young players and veterans, and a fair mix of depth, but again, if they try to compete, where will they get in the East? Should be a fun League Pass team, and will they shoot for the lottery? Okay, let's go. Might need to speed things up a little bit. The Brooklyn Nets, also a nice League Pass team. 32-50 last season, 11th place. Their over-under was 37.5. It was their first time missing the playoffs since 2018-2019, only winning one playoff series in that period. A bit unfortunate with everything they'd gone through. They were 1-3 in the preseason. Nick Claxton signed a 4-year, $97 million contract in the offseason, which is currently the largest contract on the Knicks roster and is also top-loaded, while Cam Johnson is still owed $65 million from his four-year contract, which started and signed last season. We'll have new coach with Jordi Fernandez, which was the head coach of Team Canada. Ben Simmons is on the last year of his contract, making $40 million. So let's make the big question that where does Ben Simmons go after this season? And do the Knicks hold on to him through the trade deadline? He was efficient in his second preseason game, had 11 points against the Wizards. I believe it was 4 of 6 shooting. Can he convince the Nets or another team to give him a contract after this season? And can he be an effective role player? Because we will not see him in the starting lineup very much. Speaking of which, Dennis Schroeder should be a valuable veteran at point guard. Cam Thomas should have a starting role this season, had 51 starts in 61 games. Nick Claxton at center, that leaves Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, who I'm not sure why he wasn't traded, Jalen Wilson in his second season after a great year in the G League, and sophomore Noah Clowney. While the Nets were 20th in defense last season, they don't lack depth. So what are their motives this season? Perhaps we should move on from that. Will they be a play-in team? Will they compete to be play-in? Or will they try for Cooper Flag? Let's go. That's good. 5 teams left. Check my recording. We're doing great. I'm producing and hosting and doing everything today. The Chicago Bulls. Also talking about an interesting player here. They were 39-43 last season, 9th place in the Eastern Conference, 19th in offense, 21st in defense. Their over-under was 37.5. They've had 2 playoff series since the 2014-15 season, and they've had no playoff series wins during that time. Last season they were last in opponent 3-point field goals, but they were also first in opponent 2-pointers made. So that was opposite of the Pacers? I believe so. 28th in pace at 96.3. They'll have $163 million going into next season. So with some room, if they want to trade, with 134 guaranteed in 2025. Patrick Williams signed 5 years, 90 million in offseason. Jalen Smith, 3 years, 27 million in the offseason after a couple of productive seasons in Indiana. Chris Duarte was traded from Sacramento in the DeRozan trade. And, no, Duarte was traded from Sacramento for 2 second-round draft picks. Get back to that. Zach LaVine, third year of his 5-year, $215 million deal. Josh Giddey was traded from OKC for Alex Caruso. Lonzo Ball has his $21 million player option and will be back. Vucevic on second year of his third 3-year, $60 million extension. Kobe White on second year of his 3-year, $33 million deal. Matas Buzelis on rookie deal. Ayo Dosunmu, second year of 3 years, $21 million. Big question, Zen, before we get to Lonzo Ball. What are the intentions with DeMar DeRozan being traded in the offseason? Will they be focused around trading LaVine and rebuilding with a nice core? Still a nice core after trading LaVine and whatever else they could pick up. And if they do want to trade Zach LaVine, who is going to pick up his contract and acquire him? Zach LaVine has been, of course, a solid player for the Bulls, but has not necessarily generated winning basketball. And of course, Lonzo Ball came back in the preseason after missing the last 2 seasons. The other big question everyone will look for, can Lonzo Ball have any sort of productivity and consistency throughout the season so that some team or the Bulls is convinced to give him a new contract? I hope so. Scored 10 points on 4 for 6 shooting in preseason and said afterwards he wasn't thinking about his knee. He was very productive in his 35 games in the 21-22 season, being a 25-point-per-game scorer. Like Jalen Smith's deal, and he will be perfect for adding efficiency off the bench. Smith started 14 of his 61 games last season. Starting lineup could be Josh Giddey, White, LaVine, Williams, and Vucevic. We could see Ayo Dosunmu in the starting lineup as well, who started 37 of his 76 games last season. And lastly, Taylor Horton-Tucker was picked up on the last roster spot. Fun team next, the Orlando Magic. 47 and 35 last season, 24th in offense, 4th in defense, had the 5th youngest team in the league, and was the most successful young team outside of the Oklahoma City Thunder, of course. With a similar-looking squad this season, can the Magic improve their offense and pacing to match their stellar defense? Fun fact, Magic were last in field goal attempts at 84 per game, while they were also first in opponents' field goal attempted at 84.9. So, if you were watching a Magic game last year, which was very exciting, you might have not seen that many attempts. Magic were first in free throws attempted, and drawing fouls, of course, while they were last in 3 points made and 29th in attempts. Suggs, Wagner, Banchero were the best 3-man lineup by far with 48.6 points per game. 5-player lineup of Suggs, Harris, Franz Wagner, Banchero, and Carter had the 3rd best defensive rating of any 5-team lineup in the league at 102.1. So the expectations should be similar with replacing Harris for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope this season. Speaking of which, can KCP help the offense and 3-point shooting? while offering solid defense and a veteran presence, KCP has averaged double-digit scoring and has shot over 40% from three the last 4 seasons. Perfect signing there. Isaac signed an extension in offseason for 4 years, $59 million. How big of a role will Isaac play? He averaged 15.8 minutes per game and started 2 of his 58 games. And when he's on the court, is just one of the best defensive players that you can find. Can Anthony Black play a bigger role off the bench with Markelle Fultz and Joe Ingles not returning? That's another big question. If Paulo Banchero becomes consistent from three, it will be over for most of the league, I'll say. Going from Rookie of the Year to his first All-Star, Banchero approved in almost every offensive category in his sophomore season. It's hard to imagine what his ceiling is as a 6'10 combo guard, and he will be one of the number one players to watch for sure. One of the most efficient players already, and has the second highest efficiency of any player 6'10 or taller, next to Giannis Antetokounmpo, who we have not gotten to yet. Maybe it'll be next. It's not. The Cavaliers. We have 3 teams left. Thank you for joining me again. We're rolling ahead. Cleveland Cavaliers 48-34 last season, which was good enough for 4th in the East. They lost in the Eastern Conference semifinals, which is their first playoff series win since 2018-2019, and their first playoff series win without LeBron since 1992-1993. 20th in offense, 7th in defense. We'll have $161 million in payroll going into next season, with $180 million in 25-26 when Mobley's extension starts. Garland is on the second year of his 5-year, $193 million deal. Donovan Mitchell signed an extension in the offseason. Jarrett Allen, 2-year, $40 million extension. Caris LeVert is on the 2-year, $32 million, and Max Strus on the second year of his 4-year, $63 million deal. Evan Mobley signed 5 years, $235 million, which will start in 2025. George Niang on second year of 3-year, $26 million deal, and Dean Wade on the second year of 3 years, $18.5 million extension. Will look very similar to last season. Cavaliers were optimistic that they would head into the season healthy, but Max Strus will now be out with an ankle injury that he suffered in preseason. With Max Strus out, will depth issues at small forward continue to be a struggle for the Cavs, which they have been the last few seasons, or since whenever LeBron left, I don't know. Can the Cavaliers make it even further and progress from last 2 seasons, from losing in the play-in to winning their first playoff series? I'm very optimistic that they can make it even further this season if everyone grows. After taking a bit of a step backward offensively last season, Garland at 18.8 points per game and lower attempts at 14.8. Can Garland bounce back and have a solid offensive season? Jarrett Allen had improved last season, and I think Cleveland got him on a great contract. Depth at center isn't great with the Cavaliers, having him, JT Thor, Tristan Thompson, and the possibility of optioning Evan Mobley at 5. So depth is a concern for the Cavaliers, and now is health. We have 2 teams left. And we have the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Hawks. Interesting team. Interesting team for quite a while now. They were 36-46 last season, 10th in the East, and their first season as Quinn Snyder as head coach. 12th in offense, 27th in defense. Over-under was set at 42.5. I think that was too high. It was too high. Lost their play-in matchup, and the first time missing the playoffs since 1920. For three-man lineups, Trae Young was in all of the top five, with Jamal Murray being in two of the top five. Young, Murray, Sadiq Bey, and Clint Capella was the best four-man lineup offensively at 39.3 points per game out of lineups that played 35 or more games together. They'll have 169 million, slightly under the tax, with 138 million going into 2025 with 3 team options. Young is in the third year of his 5-year deal. Capella in his contract year. DeAndre Hunter, second year of 4-year, $90 million extension. Bogdanovich in second year of his 4-year, $68 million extension. Okongwu is beginning 4-year, $62 million deal. Larry Nance traded in the offseason, is on a contract year. Dyson Daniels traded in the same deal, had team options in 24-25 and next season. Jalen Johnson in contract year with second team option. Cody Zeller traded in the same New Orleans Pelicans deal. David Roddy traded in the offseason from the Suns. And Krejci, 4 years, $10 million deal. So big question has to be, with the Hawks trading DeJounte Murray, will the Hawks try to compete this season? Can the Hawks' depth improve with Murray leaving this team? And where do they find the offense? Young had a decent offensive year, which resulted in his third All-Star appearance, but missed most of the second half of the year, playing 54 games overall. Had 10.8 assists, which was second in the league, but his assist to turnover ratio was 2.1 to 1, or 2.4 to 1. Can DeAndre Hunter have a career season offensively with Murray being gone? Hunter saw career highs in points per game, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and effective field goal percentage and efficiency last season. Okongwu started 8 of 55 games at center. Could this increase this season? Jalen Johnson had a breakout season as a starter, increasing minutes from 15 to 33 and averaged 16 points per game while averaging only 5.6 in his sophomore year. Hawks were 1-3 in the preseason. So, will their depth be an improvement? Will they be a playing team? Will they be above, below, or are they in the lottery? Last preview today, I guess I'll spin it, but it is the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks were 49-33 last season. They lost first round, their second year in a row, and have had only one series win since winning the finals in 21-22. It's their first full season with Doc Rivers. Last season, they were 4th in offense, 21st in defense, 12th in net rating. They have $191 million heading into next season. Giannis and Dame each make $48 million. Chris Middleton is on his second year of 3 years, $102 million. Brook Lopez is on a contract year making $23 million. I know I was going to avoid narratives this podcast, this episode, but Giannis brought up the possibility of being traded if the Bucks do not win this season. So take that what you will. Is it laying breadcrumbs or just speaking realistically? Franchises that have top 3 players, top 2, top 1 players, how patient will they be only winning one playoff series in 3 years? Giannis had his 8th All-Star selection in a row, 6th NBA first team selection in a row, second highest scoring in his career at 30.4 points per game, with highest EFG at 62.4. Without much building in the offseason, can a healthy Bucks squad win a championship? Similar to other top teams in the East, that might have not done much movement in the offseason? Can individual improvements, can cohesiveness with more experience playing together result in a finals team? They added Torian Prince and Gary Trent Jr., and they drafted AJ Johnson and Tyler Smith. Uh, they will, of course, rely on health, and with health being a big concern, Chris Middleton played 55 games last season and has missed 76 games the last 2 seasons. He put up decent numbers, but can still get there defensively, I think we can say. But if I was betting, I would not bet against Milwaukee Bucks. So that's it. All 15 teams. I have no idea how long that took. 15 minutes. Thank you for joining me on my first episode today. All production and everything is done by me, so if something seems odd or strange or not professional, I promise that week after week, it's something that I am working on. So I'm excited to come back to you next time, whether it's end of this week or next week, being a weekly pod with the NBA Western Conference. And I'll do some more plugs as well next time, but let's leave it there for today. If you join me, thank you so much. Remember to like and subscribe if you like this. You can follow me on YouTube or any podcast platform, and I hope you have a great day.